This is a book review of The Incredible Hulk. Who will judge the Hulk? Well, obviously we do. However, Roy Thomas, Goodwin, Trimpe or Trimpe, never certain exactly, and of course many others involved in this. Now this book just came out, 2021, and it's volume 5, 1971 to 1972, covers part of the Marvel Epic Collection, and it includes The Incredible Hulk, 138 to 156, as well as Avengers 88. It's not one of the thickest of ones. It's about 440 pages, obviously all in colour all the way through, in standard approach. I must admit that paper is slightly feeling a bit thin. Not that it really worries me particularly, but I can certainly feel. I've noticed a few comments people put about paper recently. It certainly is noticeable, certainly comparing it with the older books. And I'm just going to quickly show you the other books that are in the series. You've got the Hulk one there. This one is number 2. And there's obviously number 1. And there's also number 4. So you can see it's slightly out of order. And this is number 3. And I have got, the only other one I've got, which is slightly later, this is quite a way off, number 14. So that's for those. So let's go through this book. Let's say it is a bit thinner, but it does contain some really amazingly brilliant stories. And before I go any further, I always like to show the details of this page because it's always the most useful page. It's got all the various names: Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin, Arlen Ellison, of course, one of my favourite science fiction writers, Jerry Conway, and Herb Trimpe, whatever, Dick Ayers, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of people, and obviously a list of all of the various comics in this. And now the period I've said, April 1971, goes all the way through to October 1972. So what does this include? It includes a lot. It's got the Cyclops, it's got Jarella, it's got Project Greenskin, Destroy the Hulk, of course, that was their Ant-Man. You've got also Jarella again. You've got Sandman, the leader, Doc Doom, of course, on the back. So you've got quite a bit. And there's also a few duff stories with sort of non-characters. There's one that's sort of throwaway stories. Though at the time, maybe they were considered pretty highly. I don't know. But I must admit, when I read them now, I think, not so great. However, the artwork is superb throughout. Superb artist. And now on to the first story. And you've got the Sandman. Of course, more sort of Fantastic Four. Originally, of course, Spider-Man villain, but he sort of turns up occasionally against the Hulk. Never does particularly well against the Hulk, but that's always the problem for the old Sandman. Now, I don't know if he's a hero anymore or villain or who knows what he's doing recently. But you've also got this great story a little later, the leader. You've got the leader. He's got a usual plot to destroy the Hulk, and of course uses various other people to do it. And it's quite a good opportunity. And it isn't an issue 100. It's a sort of issue 100 story that I think there would have been. This one is 139. Very odd one. Many Foes has the Hulk. It's sort of definitely a story, an anniversary story. Maybe it was an anniversary. I don't know, but certainly just seems a bit. You've got a lot of characters. Obviously the Blob, or the Glob, I should say, not the Blob. That's from the X-Men. You've got again the Sandman there. You've got Iron Man. You've got quite a few, and then also you've got the Avengers. You've got the great issue, which I thoroughly enjoyed, issue 88, story by Arlen Ellison. And then on to the next one. I love this Jarella story. I must admit, no idea how it actually finally ends. Did Jarella ever return? Who knows? Never researched it to find out any more about what happens. But it's a great story in this subatomic world. So, we've got a picture there. I don't want to show that because that'll spoil the story. Then on to the next one, which I think is really good. You've got Doc Sampson. Samson's sort of never particularly been a mega, sort of obviously super strong, but he's never been up to the Hulk level. Well, I expect he can battle quite against most of them. He's never had his own comic, I don't think. He might have, I don't know. However, I've got this, I love this bit here. It's why does a single word resound noiselessly? He's got Jarella on his mind. Now that plays a bit later with obviously Betty, of course. There's a storyline there with Jarella. So it's really good. And you got Doc Sampson. And of course, he's changed probably his costume. I'm certain he's changed over the years. I love his green hair. Now there's a green hair story later as well. You've got Lorna, of course, the X-Men, Polaris and Havoc. One of my favourite stories of this Hulk period is next. I love this one. This is the Valkyrie story. Absolutely. They shoot Hulks, don't they? I love that one. I don't know why, it was just something, I suppose because of New York and all the lovely scenes there. But it was a great, great story. However, this is not the Valkyrie of later. This is obviously the Enchantress, but the Valkyrie, obviously Defenders, I think it's a completely different one. So you've got that storyline there. Thoroughly enjoyable. Next story leads on to Doc Doom. We've got Doc Doom turns up. And the artwork is, I love the artwork. This brilliant, brilliant artwork. Dick Ayers here. It's actually quite a mix of Dick Ayers as well as Herb Trimpe all the way through. And also John Severin as well. You've got Monster and the Madman. So you've got this Doc Doom story. Still continues. Doc Doom, as ever, has always got his madcap plans to use the Hulk, as well as he's also got this thing in his home country that he's. That bit of the storyline sort of lost me a bit, but however, who knows with Doc Doom. But it was still a good story, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Then you got this one where this is an odd story. The next one, this is got some Egyptian, so Godspawn as it's called. Call him Colossus, call him Godspawn. It's a bit of an odd story, that one. However, leads on to the next story. You got the usual. Actually, it was a nice in this one. And this, what issue was it? This was 145. Again, an unusual one. It's a sort of a story that you would have thought would have been in 150, where you've got, because it does go back and gives the origin story. So you've got a little bit of a flashback to the origin of the Hulk, obviously told slightly different. Obviously, the drawing things, he's got various, but it's clearly following. You've got a little bit more of the scene showing him flipping old Rick Jones over, which is quite nice. Next story, The Measure of Man is Death. You got the, oh, I love that story. That was good. We've got the, don't want to spoil that. But it's a leader story again. Leaders come back, as always. He's got one of the most greatest minds in the universe. And what does he do? He's always, his ploys are always ridiculous stories. Well, I suppose it could have worked, I suppose. This is weird, this one, because it's quite a short story. It suddenly finishes, and this is the issue. Well, it continues on to the next one. So you've got 147. You've got President Nixon turns up in this one, which is really weird. However, I don't know, in the UK comics, they probably changed that. I don't know. I can't remember what it was. But quite often in the UK ones, whoever the president was at the time, they would redraw it. So you'd suddenly get Carter would be in the scenes instead of Nixon. Because, of course, we probably wouldn't remember who Carter or Nixon was. Or, obviously, JFK. They would always do that. It always annoyed me. Why do that? I knew that the president was not that, ridiculous. However, heaven is a very small place. I loved that story. That was just one of the small gems that occasionally comes along. Just beautiful story with this town that's just suddenly appears out of nowhere. And the Hulk wanders through. What a beautiful story. Really deserved a little bit more than 5 or 6 pages. It was a very short story, but what an absolute... Maybe it would, if it was longer, it probably wouldn't have been so good. But just that short story, brilliant. This story is, well, sad story. Actually, a very sad story. And there's a few elements of this. Always with the Hulk, there's always that sadness. There's always like, why can't he just have an easy life? Never can. There's always people chasing after him. He always gets his ability to be bannered back with, he gets his brain back, and so on and so on. Suddenly, for a couple of episodes, but then, of course, there wouldn't be any story, would there? But you got this story. You've killed Jarella. Of course. But you've got the girl in. Why they do that with covers? But I suppose it makes it more. They've always done that sort of things. And she doesn't even really look like the Jarella in the comic book, to be honest. You always wonder if the artist has looked at what's. Yeah, it's got purple. This is red inside and completely different. Anyway, but you got Jarella back. Good old Jarella. Again, I would love to have a long period of time with Jarella stories. Would have been really great, but instead they're just occasional. Now, I'm not certain if they continued the Jarella story later, if that's how they mention her name. However, you've got this bit of a non-story. The next one, it's always quite often there were a few non-stories. The Inheritor. So you've got the Inheritor story there. Yeah, well, he said about that, the better. On to the next story. And quite often you have these sort of... Now, we've got the Havoc story. I love this one. This is an absolute... Though it starts a bit weird. Cry Hulk, Cry Havoc. And you've got Havoc there. And I really like this story, though. It was a bit similar to the next one. You've got the Crawling Unknown, When Monsters Meet. Sort of straight out of the Atlas period horror. Well, it's very similar to Quatermass and those sort of series. We got in the UK, we've got the series where someone starts changing, and those stories are always good. But it's quite a gruesome change, I must admit. It's very well done. I don't know if this character ever turned up again. However, I suspect maybe not. However, goes on to which is the next story, which is Who Will Judge the Hulk? And this is a real great opportunity for a real massive crossover with virtually all the characters, other than I think the X-Men and maybe a few others, but virtually everyone seems to turn up in this. Doc Strange doesn't either. You've got Daredevil, you've got the Fantastic Four, you've got obviously the Thing, you've got Spider-Man, you've got the lot all thrown in again, and there's this lovely trial. Free the Hulk, they're going outside. And you've even got Peter Parker in a bit of the story. I love the way he runs off, and you of course got Jameson going, he's a coward, he's turned yellow again. Really? Haven't you worked it out yet? You're supposed to be this great sort of newspaper guy. You've still not worked it out. Oh, mysteriously, 2 seconds later, Spider-Man appears. No resemblance, possibly, for that storyline. You think you could have had an excuse? I've got to ring up Spider-Man and then run off. That would have been easier. But anyway, My World, My Jury. Of course, he's in these usual indestructible things. Why do they bother with the indestructible bands? Always, this is indestructible. Titanium thing, you can never break through that. We've got Edmonton, whatever it is. We got that. Can't break through it. No. And then he does. Or he just shrinks and then walks out again. Don't they ever remember these Bruce Banner? However, these sort of complications in storyline. You've got the next story, which is an Ant-Man story, which sort of fits more with Marvel feature. Yeah, I think it was Marvel feature, where you got the Ant-Man stories. Again, not a series that ran really long enough. It was a very short run of Marvel feature. And I love this bit. Jarella's still in the story. You've got Jarella. And it, of course, connects with Ant-Man, obviously being subatomic. And you've got Hell is a Very Small Hulk. Okay, sometimes the titles, well, I suppose, yes, that probably does fit. Just a very odd one. But you got, and the Hydra, my old vote. Actually, it should have been AIM. I love AIM. Put AIM into it. So I would always think, put AIM into the story, and then you'd sort of guarantee, they're useless, AIM. I love AIM for that. Then you got this one, which is a great little story, a real nice opportunity, and you got, that's the Ant-Man, A World He Never Made. And you got the Shaper, Destination Nightmare, and this is Archie Goodwin's story there, Destination Nightmare. And I love that one because it's a nice alternate universe story, which is always enjoyable. I love those stories, even though the villain in it is totally hopeless. But it's still quite an enjoyable story. And then you've got Jarella again. Jarella all the way through it. And then just got a bit of bonus material at the back. You've got the Incredible Hulk Annual, and that's number 3. And you've got number 4. And then you've got some inked pages. So you've got a few bits of inked pages there. And that's it. Oh, and this is one of the nice things. I love this. And I'm not going to show this because it would spoil it. But it's got an unaltered cover. And I love the cover. And I don't know, someone must have just lost their nerve or something, because it's, of course, got complete change. You've got different people in the cover. They just sort of had some people and then they changed it completely. I wonder why. Very odd. However, there's no explanation, so it's also here. It's about here, Marvel 1971 switch from industry standard 32-page, 15 cents format to a longer 48-page format, and then a quick reversion back to how triggered a host of problems. Yeah, I remember that period when they just changed the price. Back when the size, I wish I had stuck with 48. I think 48 pages, those sort of things, much nicer. 48 page for a comic, you got a substantial comic. I would happily pay a little bit more for the comic to be a bit more expensive. You can get, it's a chunky purchase. When you buy a comic, it's just fiddly, sort of hardly anything for quite a lot of money. Why not add a little bit more? Just charge a bit more, but you've got more pages, maybe a couple of back, as long as they're good. That's the most important thing. No point if they're no good. And then, of course, you've got the usual list of all the other epic collections. And I love those. I love this list. I mean, I don't, at some point, they're going to have to hire Ant-Man for this the list of the back, because it's just going to get smaller and smaller. The font will go down to subatomic level, and Jarella will be able to read this, because it's just a list of all the epics are just getting longer and longer. Really great. Now, I always, whenever I get one of these new books, I always end up looking and see, is there any new ones that I've missed, completely missed, properly? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Separate Reality, the Doctor Strange one, and also the Fantastic Four War Atlantis one. Hopefully we'll be getting that in the next couple of days, so I'll be reading that and doing a review of that as well. So, Incredible Hulk, I love these epic and things. I'm looking forward to the next one as well, next couple of volumes. There were some great, great stories this period, and this is a period that I started to collect comics, so it's just great to read some of these stories, and many of them I read in black and white, and also in the Essential series as well. So I love this volume of epic. Brilliant. Totally recommended.